For 7 years, Ilara Foss had made herself small. She lived in Ashmere, a quiet border settlement at the edge of the Northern Territories, and she worked as a healer. Every morning she opened the small wooden clinic near the market square, boiled water for tea, and waited for the sick and injured to arrive. She wrapped broken arms, she stitched cuts, she sat with old men through their fevers and held the hands of frightened children. No one in Ashmere thought of her as anything more than the quiet woman with steady hands and tired eyes. They did not know her real name. They did not know where she came from. They certainly did not know that she had once been the last living heir of the Thornwood line, a family once famous across the kingdom for producing the finest commanders the wolf packs had ever known. Ilara had buried that name the night her family was destroyed. She had been 16 when it happened. Her home pack, proud and powerful, was attacked in the dead of night by a coalition of rival packs who feared the Thornwood influence growing too strong. She remembered fire. She remembered running through the trees with her mother's voice behind her, telling her to keep going, do not look back, survive. She remembered waking up 3 days later in a stranger's home, alone, with no family left and no pack to return to. After that she made a choice. She would never again be someone worth killing. She changed her name. She learned healing instead of leading. She kept her head down, her voice soft, and her past locked away in a place even she rarely visited anymore. In Ashmere she found something close to peace. It was not the life she was born for, but it was a life, and for 7 years it was enough. Then came the war. The kingdom had been unstable for years, torn between old loyalties and new ambitions. Small packs fought over land. Rogue groups raided border towns. It was Kael Draven, the Alpha King of the unified Northern Territories, who had spent the last decade trying to hold the fractured kingdom together. He was known as a fair ruler, strong in battle and careful in judgment, but even he could not be everywhere at once. When word came that a coalition of rogue packs was gathering near the northern border, Kael made the difficult decision to personally inspect the smaller settlements before committing his forces to a larger campaign. Ashmere was one of many stops, a modest town that supplied grain and medicine to nearby camps. It was not supposed to be important. It was not supposed to be dangerous. Kael arrived on a grey morning with a small group of his personal guard. The townspeople gathered nervously to greet him, unsure why their king had come to such an unremarkable place. Ilara stood near the back of the crowd, as she always did, trying to draw as little attention as possible. She almost succeeded. Kael's eyes swept over the gathering out of habit, cataloguing faces, postures, and small details, a skill built from years of leading armies. Most people in the crowd looked at him with awe or nervousness. One woman did not. She watched him the way a soldier watches an unfamiliar commander, quietly assessing, careful and controlled. It was such a small thing that he almost dismissed it. Almost. He asked the town elder about her. "That is our healer," the elder said. "Keeps to herself. Good with medicine. Nothing more to tell." Kael nodded and let it go. He had bigger concerns than one quiet woman. He spent the day reviewing the town's defenses, speaking with the local guards, and preparing to move on the next morning. Ashmere had few defenders, mostly young men with little real combat experience, but the elder assured him the town had never been a target before. That night, everything changed. The rogue coalition had been tracking Kael's movements more closely than anyone realized. They knew he had only a small guard with him, and they saw an opportunity too good to ignore. Under cover of darkness, they struck Ashmere, not for the town itself, but hoping to catch the Alpha King exposed and weakened. The attack came fast and brutal. Fires broke out near the eastern fence. Shouts of alarm tore through the sleeping town. Kael's personal guard moved quickly, but they were spread thin, and the town's own defenders panicked in the chaos. Within minutes, 2 of the ranking guards were down, wounded badly enough to be pulled from the fight. The town's makeshift command structure collapsed almost immediately. It could have ended in disaster. Instead, Ilara moved. The healer who spent her days speaking softly and keeping her eyes down suddenly transformed into someone else entirely. She grabbed a fallen guard's horn and blew 3 sharp signals, a pattern so old and specific that only someone trained in classical pack warfare would recognize it. Confused townspeople, who had been running in every direction, suddenly found themselves being organized into groups. She directed the able-bodied men to the eastern fence to hold the line. She sent the younger boys to fetch water for the fires. She positioned archers on the rooftops with calm, clear instructions, telling them exactly when to hold and when to fire. She did not shout. She did not panic. Her voice carried the kind of authority that made people listen without questioning, the same way a natural leader's voice always does. Within minutes, what had been chaos became a coordinated defense. Kael, fighting off attackers near the western side of town, heard the horn signals and immediately recognized them. His blood ran cold, not from fear, but from disbelief. Those signals belonged to a style of command that had not been used in over a decade. It was Thornwood's strategy, precise and merciless in its efficiency, a fighting style he had only ever read about in old war records. He fought his way toward the sound, cutting through two attackers who blocked his path, until he broke into the town square and saw her. Elara stood in the center of it all, blood on her sleeve, hair loose and wild, giving orders with the calm precision of someone who had commanded armies before. The frightened healer he had dismissed that morning was gone. In her place stood someone who moved like a storm given shape, someone whose presence alone seemed to steady the panicked defenders around her. The rogue attackers, seeing their surprise assault falling apart under unexpectedly organized resistance, began to retreat. Kael's own guards arrived moments later, and together with the townspeople, they pushed the remaining attackers back into the trees. By the time the sun rose, the danger had passed. Ashmere had survived a battle it never should have won. Kael found Elara afterward near the eastern fence, checking on the wounded, her hands steady despite everything that had happened. He approached slowly, studying her the way he might study an unfamiliar map, trying to make sense of contradictions. "Those horn signals," he said quietly. "Where did you learn them?" Elara did not look up right away. She finished wrapping a young man's arm, thanked him for his patience, and only then turned to face the king. "A long time ago," she said. "In a life I do not talk about." "That was Thornwood's strategy," Kael said. "There is no mistaking it. I studied it myself, in old records, after the family was destroyed. No one outside that bloodline should know it so well." For a long moment Elara said nothing. She had spent 7 years avoiding this exact conversation, 7 years building walls specifically to prevent this exact discovery. But she was tired, and the night had stripped away every pretense she once relied on. "My name is not Elara Voss," she said finally. "Not originally. I was born into the Thornwood family. I was there the night it was destroyed. I ran, I hid, and I built a new life so that no one would ever come looking for what was left of that name." Kael did not react with shock, though the revelation was enormous. Instead, he studied her with something closer to quiet understanding. "You have been hiding for 7 years," he said, "living small, staying invisible, letting the world believe you were nothing more than a healer." "It kept me alive," Elara said. "It kept this town from becoming a target because of who I used to be. And yet tonight," Kael said, "when everything fell apart, you did not hesitate. You commanded this town like you were born for it, because you were." Elara's jaw tightened. "Being born for something does not mean I want it. My family's name got them killed. Leadership got them killed. I chose a smaller life because a smaller life was safer." "Safer for you," Kael said gently, "but tonight it was your leadership that kept this town from burning. If you had stayed hidden, if you had let the panic take over, how many more would we have lost?" She did not answer, because she did not have an answer that argued against him. Kael continued, his voice quiet but firm. "The kingdom is fractured. Packs are fighting each other, instead of standing together. I need commanders people will follow, not out of fear, but out of trust. I need leaders who understand both strategy and sacrifice. Tonight, you showed me you are exactly that kind of leader. Hiding that away does not just cost you. It costs everyone who could benefit from what you are able to do." Elara looked at the town around her, at the wounded being cared for, at the young men who had fought bravely under her direction, without even knowing her real name. She thought of the family she had lost, and the years she had spent trying to disappear, so nothing like that could ever happen again. But she also thought about the moment the horn sounded, the moment the chaos organized itself under her voice, the strange and undeniable feeling of finally doing what she had been trained her whole life to do. If I step back into that world, she said quietly, I become a target again. Whoever destroyed my family once could come looking for what is left of that bloodline. Perhaps, Kale said, but you would not be alone this time. You would not be a scared 16-year-old running through the trees. You would be standing beside people who see your worth, starting with me. Ilara studied him for a long moment. There was no flattery in his voice, no attempt to manipulate her into something she did not want. He spoke plainly, the way a leader speaks to another leader, with respect rather than command. I am tired of hiding, she admitted finally. I have been tired for a long time. I just did not know what waited on the other side of that fear. You do not have to know everything right away, Kale said, but you do not have to face it alone anymore either. Over the following weeks, word of what happened in Ashmere spread slowly through the Northern Territories. People spoke of a mysterious healer who had organized an entire town's defense during a surprise attack, someone whose calm command had saved dozens of lives. Few knew her real name yet, but those who had been there that night would never forget the sight of her standing fearless amid the chaos. Ilara did not return to a quiet life after that. With Kale's support, she began training a small unit of defenders, teaching them the strategies she had learned as a child, adapting old lessons into something new and useful for a fractured kingdom trying to heal. It was not an easy transition. Old fears did not disappear overnight, and there were nights she still woke from memories of fire and running. But for the first time in 7 years, she was not running from who she was. She was building something with it instead. Kale visited Ashmere often in the months that followed, officially to review the northern defenses, though both of them understood there was more to it than strategy meetings. Their conversations grew longer each time, filled with quiet respect that slowly deepened into something neither of them rushed to name. He never pushed her to share more than she was ready to give. She never expected him to solve the fears that still lingered from her past. They simply stood beside each other, steady and patient, allowing trust to grow at its own pace. One evening, as the sun set behind the training grounds where she had spent the day teaching young defenders, Kale found her sitting quietly on the fence, watching the sky change colors. You did not have to reveal yourself that night, he said, sitting beside her. You could have stayed hidden in the chaos, let someone else take charge, and returned to your quiet life afterward. I know, Ilara said, but some part of me was tired of watching people struggle when I knew I could help. I think I was ready to stop hiding long before that night happened. I just needed a reason strong enough to push me forward. And now? Kale asked. Ilara looked at him, and for the first time in years, there was no fear in her eyes, only quiet determination. Now, I am ready to stand in the open, she said, whatever comes with it. Kale smiled, and for a moment, the weight of the kingdom's troubles seemed a little lighter. He had come to Ashmere searching for reinforcements to strengthen his campaign against the rogue packs. Instead, he had found something far more valuable, a leader who understood both the cost of power and the courage it took to embrace it again. Together, they turned to face the horizon, ready for whatever challenges the kingdom still had waiting for them, no longer as a king and a hidden heir, but as equals who had chosen, at last, to stand side by side.